In May of 1989, the Riches, a newlywed family headed by Bill and Liz Rich, drove along the Welsh countryside on their way to the old manor they had recently purchased, nestled amidst rolling hills of Brecon National Park. 14-year-old Lawrence, Bill's son from his first marriage, gazed out the car window, his eyes wide with wonder as they journeyed deeper into the verdant embrace of the land. Each twist and turn brought them closer to their new home, a place where laughter and love were meant to bloom. Bill's heart swelled with hope. This tranquil haven, far removed from the busy city they were used to, was sure to spark his creativity. He dreamed of filling canvases filled with brilliance, inspired by the ever-changing hues of nature that adorned their new surroundings. As the family arrived at the manor gates, a sense of excitement tingled in the air, but they couldn't have known that beneath the manor's charming facade lurked a darkness, a chilling secret that would soon cast a long and ominous shadow that would follow them for the rest of their lives. You see, the idyllic countryside manor held a history steeped in sorrow and pain. Consequences of the past raged through its ancient halls, waiting to inflict terror on an unsuspecting family. That family happened to be the Riches. This is the true story of Heol Fanog, better known as the Welsh Amityville. So get cozy, turn down the lights, and grab yourself a cup of hot cocoa as we get right into one of Wales's most haunted houses. In November of that year, the Rich family welcomed a new member, baby Ben, into their lives, filling the manor with the joyful sounds of new life. One night after engaging in nighttime activities, Bill headed downstairs to use the toilet. As he was urinating, a sudden and violent thudding echoed from the upper floors as if a man in heavy boots stomped across the wooden planks. Bill raced upstairs, his heart pounding in his chest. Hoping it was Lawrence, Bill rushed into his son's room to see what the trouble was. However, he found his son fast asleep. Returning to the bedroom, Bill found Liz comforting baby Ben, who had woken up. When he questioned her about the noise, Liz looked at him with puzzled eyes, unaware of any disturbance. It seemed only Bill had heard the inexplicable stomping. The following day, as Liz cradled Ben in her arms, she filled the nursery with soft lullabies. However, it was not long before a rhythmic pounding echoed through the room, the sound of a door swinging open and slamming shut with relentless force. Liz's soothing song faded as she turned to investigate. To her bewilderment, the door remained steadfast, its hinges unmoving. Over the next few days, the whole family would experience hearing these odd noises. One common phenomenon included the sounds of boots running across the upstairs hallway and making their way down the stairs only to stop just before the last step. Along with the heavy steps of boots, the Riches also heard a contrasting set of footsteps from time to time, those of slippers shuffling across the floorboards. Could it be that there were multiple apparitions inhabiting Heol Fanog, or were they merely the creaking complaints of old pipes and settling wood? The answers remained elusive, leaving the Riches to grapple with the unknown. In fact, the concept of a dark and menacing spirit contrasted by a lighter and more benevolent one was a recurring theme within the walls of Heol Fanog. In addition to the dueling nature of the boots and slippers, the Riches noticed times when the smell of sulphur seemed to emanate throughout their home. At times, the stench was so overpowering, the family had to leave the manor. At other times, the sweet aroma of incense permeated the walls of Heol Fanog. And while it wasn't so terrible as to make them physically ill, the question of where it originated kept them up at night without fail. Furthermore, the manor was subject to pockets of intense heat and cold, regardless of the temperature within and without the rest of the house. What makes these incidents even more intriguing is that the location of these spots was not random. The spots of heat and cold, the pungent scents and sweet aromas, all seemed to coalesce around a single object, a silent witness to the unfolding drama. an object that would cause the Riches both mental and financial anguish, as they tried for 7 long years to crack its mystery and put an end to its torment. The object in question, and what stood as the most damning piece of evidence towards proving there was something truly paranormal going on in Heol Fanog, was the electricity meter. While typically a mundane object in most homes, the electricity meter in Heol Fanog was anything but. Almost immediately after the start of the phenomena, the Riches found that their electricity meter had skyrocketed. To their horror, the bill revealed itself to be over £750, equivalent to almost £2,000 in today's money. The Riches would have had to power multiple homes in order to achieve such an astronomical statement. Shocked and panicked, Bill and Liz began to investigate every inch of the house, looking for anything out of the ordinary that could have been the source. But after their search proved fruitless, they were left to face the grim reality of financial ruin. And so the Riches became desperate. They sought outside help from Glyn Maddox, a well-known solicitor in Wales, who was brought in to investigate the grounds and hopefully stave off the electricity company requesting payment. The back-and-forth exchange between Maddox and the electricity company, Swalek, lasted months, with Maddox proving that it was physically impossible for the home to generate the amount of electricity the Riches were being charged for. Yet Swalek insisted their meters were accurate and even brought a technician over to confirm their claim. This carried on until one day, without notice, Swalek stopped requesting payment from the Riches. Could it have been a change of heart, a grudging acceptance of the inexplicable? Or could they have dropped it to spare themselves the embarrassment of being associated with such a case where otherworldly forces were clearly at play? Either way, it is incredibly atypical for large companies such as Swalek to abandon their pursuit of owed funds. The unusual turn of events only served to deepen the enigma surrounding Heol Fanog, solidifying its reputation as a place where the ordinary rules of the world no longer applied.
This kind of bizarre plague of madness that had spread to all the animals that we had.
The strange occurrences continued as, whilst living in the manor, Bill and Liz's pet pig, Lucinda, which they had kept in the barn attached to the home, had suddenly gone mad with rage, attacking anything she could set her sights on. The Riches became so concerned with Lucinda's behaviour that Bill was eventually forced to put her down. In the following weeks, 2 cats, a guinea pig, a dog, and a herd of 6 goats had also died mysteriously. Any other animals living on the farm had run away. Bill also saw a drying up of clients for his portraits. What was once a lengthy list of commissions had transformed into a series of cancelled appointments and unhappy customers. The frustration of it all drove Bill to shelter himself in his room and take his frustration out on the canvas. One evening, Bill and Liz witnessed the downstairs toilet rising from the ground, as if there were an object underneath the tiles, pushing it upwards. Already overwhelmed by the now daily phenomena, they rushed to contact a plumber, hoping for a swift and rational explanation. When the plumber arrived, however, the toilet was firmly on the ground and the bathroom floor was no longer raised. Apologising profusely for the wasted trip, Bill and Liz watched as the plumber departed, a sense of unease lingering in the air. And as if on cue, the tiles began to bulge once more, the toilet rising, as if it were mocking the couple. Now frightened, Bill and Liz called the plumber again, and once again, as soon as he walked in, the toilet was back to normal. Embarrassed by the strangeness of the events unfolding in their home, the Riches once more offered their apologies to the plumber. But instead of accepting their remorseful words, the workman uttered a chilling revelation. 2 decades earlier, the plumber had answered a call from Marion Holborn, the manor's previous owner, and whose son, Phil Holborn, was Bill and Liz's landlord. Tasked with installing new radiators in the manor's basement, he completed his work with diligence and care. Yet, the illusion of a job well done was shattered when he received a frantic call from Marion. The radiators, defying gravity and logic, had ripped themselves from the walls. The next day, the plumber returned to the scene, meticulously reattaching the fixtures, only to receive the same frantic call that very night. Desperate for a solution, he resorted to an unconventional tactic, securing the radiators with cruciform screws, and, as suddenly and inexplicably the disturbances had started, they had stopped. The cruciform screws, it seemed, were the answer to whatever was plaguing the walls of Heol Fanog at that time. In February of 1990, Heol Fanog's gardens lay dormant beneath a winter's sky, their once vibrant blooms now withered and brown. A biting wind whistled through the bare branches, carrying with it an icy chill that seeped into Liz's bones. She had been pushing baby Ben around in his stroller for some time now, and the cold was getting to her. It was about time, she thought, that they head back inside. In that instant, however, she got the creeping feeling that she was being watched, and she soon realized the feeling wasn't coming from the darkness of the surrounding forest, but from inside her home. In the window of Ben's nursery stood an elderly woman, her hair the color of moonlight, her eyes filled with a profound sadness. Standing motionless, her gaze fixed upon Liz and the child. Liz raced up the stairs, her heart pounding in her chest. But upon reaching the nursery, she found nothing but an empty room and a lingering chill. The old woman had vanished. This would not be the last time the Riches would encounter the old woman. Months later, Liz would come upstairs to soothe a crying Ben, only to find the old woman sitting in the armchair watching him. Liz was not the only one to witness the old woman either. Both Ben and Becca, Liz and Bill's daughter, who would be born later that year, both claimed to have witnessed her as well.
There was a very heavy feeling, sort of as if you were being watched. And then there was I call her the Grey Lady. I don't know if Mum's touched upon her. The
She has. She calls her the old woman.
Yeah, I always used to call her the Grey Lady because she was like a black and white image. There's no colour to her at all. And me and my older brother would mainly see her in the playroom, in the armchair in the corner of the room. She never said anything, but she'd always sort of watch, and not in like a friendly manner. So me and my brother just stopped going there eventually. We just didn't want to be in that room at all.
The phenomena got so frequent and intense that Bill and Liz called a local priest to conduct an exorcism. And while it may have seemed to work for a couple of hours, the haunting returned with a fury. It soon became that the town got word of the exorcism at Heol Fanog, and one day, whilst in town, having conversation with the locals, it was revealed to Liz that their exorcism wasn't the first to be done at Heol Fanog. That's right. The previous owner, Marion Holborn, also conducted an exorcism in the 1960s. One that brought the vicar and the church's entire choir to the house to expel whatever darkness resided. As the year 1990 drew to a close, a new dawn arrived for the Rich family with the birth of their daughter, Becca. But the joy of her arrival was tempered by the ever-present shadow of the manor's haunting. Seeking solace and answers, they turned to renowned psychic Larry Harry. With him arrived a pair of Dutch mediums. The group of psychics claimed to detect 4 presences within Heol Fanog: an elderly woman, 2 young men, and an ominous, unidentifiable darkness. This darkness, they warned, had latched onto Lawrence, making him the unwitting host of whatever malevolent forces terrorized the family. Over the last year and a half at Heol Fanog, Lawrence's personality dramatically changed. He became angry and violent. On one occasion, he threw a spew of curses towards his grandmother. He also spent almost all his time in his room by himself. Bill and Liz also noticed that his voice became deep and raspy and full of hate. And so, Bill, with a mixture of hope and trepidation, sent his boy to his grandparents in Brecon, praying for an end to the madness. As the psychics continued to weave their protective barrier around the manor, fragments of Heol Fanog's sinister past began to surface. Visions flickered through their minds, glimpses of a macabre ritual. 7 witches cloaked in shadow, their faces obscured by tall leather hats, danced around a crackling fire. Their voices rose in a chilling incantation. While the psychics could not decipher what was being said, they did recognize that there was an intensely negative energy emanating from the witches and connecting them to Bill. It wasn't Lawrence who was possessed by the fourth presence. It was Bill. As a young man, Bill came into contact with Alex Sanders, a man labelled as the King of Witches and one of the most notorious witches in all of 20th century Britain. Lured by promises of artistic success, young Bill found himself accepting an invitation from Sanders to participate in a satanic ritual that was sure to guarantee him success as a painter. The ritual had Bill go into Sanders' basement blindfolded and remove his clothes, while Sanders and his wife held a sword to Bill's heart, chanting incantations. But mid-ritual, Bill had a change of heart. He asked Sanders and his wife to stop and proceeded to leave their home. Could it be possible that leaving mid-ritual left open doors to the other side? And that malevolent spirits followed Bill and attached themselves to him? Bill's mind wrestled with these questions, his guilt intertwining with a growing sense of dread.
It's a story I think about all these years later, over 50 years. It's the only time, it's the only person this happened. Has anybody ever backed up? Only one. There's a point in the initiation where the initiate is blindfolded, bound, he's naked, he doesn't know what's going on. That sword is at the heart, and he's being challenged. And there was a silence, and then this man said, "I want to stop now." And it was so powerful. This man had been on the edge of it, and it's dangerous, and it can turn your mind. And if he felt that this caused a reaction at a later date, I can quite believe it.
Soon after, Bill and Liz's neighbour, Wyn Thomas, arrived at their door on top of a horse. He had a request for Bill: to paint a portrait of his horse, Echo. Unsure if the request was genuine or out of pity, given that he had lost most of his commissions, Bill was hesitant to accept the offer. But Wyn Thomas was adamant he wanted Bill to be the one to paint the animal, and so Bill graciously accepted. After that, Bill locked himself in his office, trying to focus solely on painting the horse with every ounce of artistry within him. He began to draw the animal behind the Thomas farm, grazing upon the open pasture, but no matter how hard he tried, he wasn't able to accurately draw the horse's back right leg. Attempt after attempt resulted in misshapen and twisted versions of the appendage. On the precipice of giving up, Bill forced himself to complete the painting and hoped his neighbour wouldn't notice his shortcomings. By a miracle, Wyn Thomas was overjoyed with the painting and decided to hang it over the fireplace mantel, paying Bill a handsome commission for a job well done. Feeling slightly guilty for not being able to deliver his best work, he accepted the payment graciously. Perhaps Larry Harry really did expel the evil that was haunting them for so long. However, it was not long until Bill got a call from Wyn, furious and almost in tears. Echo had twisted his back right leg. The injury worsened until one morning, the horse was found dead in the exact same spot that Bill had painted it. Wynne Thomas burned Bill's painting and never spoke to him again. Each day dawned heavy with dread. Misfortunes and tragedies piling on, the weight of the Heol Fanog pressed down upon the rich family, threatening to crush their spirits. But the family was in no financial shape to leave, and it seemed that they were destined to be in a stalemate between the state of their finances and the spirits tormenting them. Until one day, Liz and her children encountered the tall man. The Christmas cheer had barely faded from the manor's halls when a new terror descended upon Liz and her children. As they traversed the passageway connecting the barn to the main house, she felt a chill in the air and an instinct to run like never before. In the dim light, a figure emerged from the shadows, tall and gaunt, its form obscured by an impenetrable darkness. Liz strained to see its face, but only a void met her gaze. While this obviously disturbed Liz and her children, what was even more terrifying was the atmosphere that accompanied him. It was the suffocating aura of death and menace, one that warned Liz that if she didn't leave Heol Fanog soon, she never would. That same day, Bill and Liz packed their bags and fled to Liz's mother's house, 50 miles away. In an effort to fight back against whatever evil was tormenting them, Bill and Liz got into contact with the Reverend David Holmwood, a renowned exorcist who rose to fame in Brazil before returning to Wales. Months of anticipation and preparation led to a fateful day in June of 1991, when the Reverend, accompanied by Anita Dick, a former Satanist turned believer, arrived at the manor's doorstep. For 2 long years, a battle raged within the manor's walls. Reverend Holmwood and Anita became frequent visitors, their prayers and rituals echoing through the ancient halls. Bill, under Holmwood's suggestion, sacrificed his paintings, burning his more demonic ones, hoping to starve any darkness that clung to him. None of this, however, prevented the ghostly occurrences or electrical surges. The lack of progress, coupled with Bill's deteriorating mental state, cast a long shadow over the Riches' hopes. They soon decided the Reverend's methods were not sufficient, and so they turned to explore other avenues to rid Heol Fanog of its evil. In the spring of 1995, a man named Eddie Burks arrived at the doorstep of Heol Fanog. Having heard of the manor's haunting, he believed himself to be the one to put an end to it all. His reputation preceded him, and having previously been employed by the royal family, there was a level of credibility with Eddie that previous exorcists and ghost hunters did not have. What was even more interesting was the way he approached the spirits. Eddie did not seek to banish the spirits with forceful incantations. Instead, he approached the unseen with a quiet reverence, believing that the veil between worlds was not a barrier to be shattered, but a door through which glimpses could be gleaned. Entering the kitchen, he settled upon a worn wooden chair in the kitchen, his eyes fluttering closed. A soft murmur escaped his lips, a whisper that revealed a story of events that took place in Heol Fanog many years before, and that were directly responsible for the hauntings that were taking place. In the chill of November 1848, a young Thomas Edward's heart fluttered with anticipation as he awaited a rendezvous with a young lady. As the hours passed, however, he began to realize that she would not be appearing. Disheartened and disappointed, he made his way back home to the town of Combe Goody, cutting across Heol Fanog. As he passed through the manor's grounds, a chilling sight unfolded before his eyes. A coven of witches engaged in a gruesome ritual, their chanting echoing through the night. Terror seized him as he glimpsed a woman, writhing in terror, on the verge of being sacrificed. Fleeing in terror, Edward sought refuge in a local pub. drowning his sorrows in drink. In a drunken stupor, he blurted out his horrifying encounter, unaware of the dire consequences his words would have. Unbeknownst to Thomas, his words had reached the ears of those who sought to keep their dark secrets hidden. To silence the witness, the shadowy figures compelled James Griffiths, Thomas's friend and confidant, to murder him under threat of harm to his loved ones. And so, on the cold Friday morning of November 17th, 1848, Griffiths raised an axe and ended his friend's life, silencing him forever within the shadows of Heol Fanog. The mysterious group that had orchestrated Edward's demise promised James Griffiths freedom from the hangman's noose in exchange for his silence. Trusting them, James remained silent during the trial. And even as the noose tightened around his neck, he did not speak, believing that he would somehow be rescued. James Griffiths was executed via hanging on April 9th, 1849, at the age of 18 years old. In the wake of Eddie Burke's visit, a wave of change swept through Heol Fanog. The electricity meter, once a source of torment, settled into a steady hum, and the resulting bill was more manageable for the riches. There appeared to be a mass exodus of spirits. Bill and Liz witnessed as dozens of apparitions appeared and disappeared over the coming months. Eddie Burks believed that by opening a door for the tormented spirit of Thomas Edwards, he had inadvertently unlocked a passage for all the trapped souls within the manor's walls. It was as if the house itself exhaled a sigh of relief, releasing the burdens it had carried for so long. In 1996, Liz's grandfather passed away, leaving them with an inheritance large enough to escape Heol Fanog and start anew in a nearby village. But while they physically escaped Heol Fanog, the scars it left behind were permanent. Traumatized, and blaming himself for the torment inflicted upon the family, Bill fell into alcoholism, leading to his marriage with Liz falling apart. One Friday, Bill was found passed out in his home by his landlady and taken to a hospital. That Monday, he passed away. Heol Fanog's final victim. With the departure of the riches came a blanket of peace that covered Heol Fanog. No longer were there the cries of ancient spirits wanting to be heard. Instead, the chirping of birds, the whistling of the wind, and the sound of farm animals grazing filled the air. The once menacing aura of land was replaced by one of normalcy. If a stranger were to pass by the farm today, they would do so unaware of the terrors it once held. But while peace has settled the land, one can't help but wonder if it is only a matter of time before the spirits of Heol Fanog awaken once again. Can a place truly be exorcised of its demons, or is the past forever intertwined with the present? Only time will tell.